Hi everyone, today we are annotating Havisham by Duffy. So your learning intentions and success criteria for this is to understand and analyse the poem Havisham, and if you can explain what the poem's about and break down and examine the language, then you'll have been successful. This is quite different from the other poems that we've studied so far for Duffy. This one is a dramatic monologue, which means it's written from the perspective of the speaker who takes on a persona. The persona that's taken on here is Miss Havisham from Dickens's Great Expectations. She was a woman who was jilted at the altar and held a real bitterness towards men as a result of that. In terms of form and structure, it has 4 unrhymed stanzas. She does that because it helps her concentrate and fix her ideas more. She's described them as almost being like mini canvases. The lack of rhyme and the presence of enjambment helps to create a more defined voice in the poem. However, while this can often produce a more natural, realistic speech pattern, in this case it has the opposite effect. Havisham's voice is choppy and stilted, which emphasises the lack of order and structure to her thoughts. She's a woman who's clearly very damaged, and you can tell that through the structure here. At first glance, it seems fairly regular. There's no fixed meter, and then the occasional slightly off-kilter half rhyme and assonance helps to reinforce this lack of logic and the erosion of the speaker's mind. The themes that tie in with this is the corrosive nature of hatred on the human mind, and also we could discuss this as a poem about isolation and a poem about the nature of love, which helps us tie them in with the rest of the poems that we've studied. As usual, my annotation key is here, and this is the techniques I'll be picking out. With red, I will be using word choice, green will be imagery, and blue will be structure. Beloved sweetheart bastard, not a day since then I haven't wished him dead, prayed for it. So hard I've dark green pebbles for eyes, ropes on the back of my hands I could strangle with. So we start with that really shocking first line, that's beloved sweetheart bastard. The alliteration there, the B sound, is plosive, which is quite a noise where you kind of spit through your teeth. It really suggests the anger that she holds. It's really helping create that caustic bitter tone that runs through the poem right from the very start. It seems a bit strange to call somebody your beloved but then call him a bastard in the same line, and it really shows Havisham's interior conflict, which we'll learn a lot about as the poem continues. We get to the end of that line and we have some word choice with the word then. That's just really to remind us that it's the wedding day that she's discussing there. We move on to the next line where we have the word dead. Really highlights the intensity of her vengeful desires. She really wants to seek revenge on this man. She wishes him dead every single day since she's been jilted. Prayed for it. It's kind of ironic to have this religious reference because usually we pray for positive things, but in this case she is praying for the death of her husband, or her not husband, her fiance should I say. We then move on to quite an interesting image here, that she's got dark green pebbles for eyes and ropes on the back of her hands that she could strangle. They're two kind of separate images. Dark green pebbles for eyes, that metaphor there, really hard and cold, because if you think about the colour, well, first of all, if you think about pebbles, they're hard, they're stones. She's suggesting there that she's cried so much that her eyes have now shrivelled and worn and become hardened to it. And green really is the connotations of jealousy and envy, which is clearly how she feels at this stage. We then move on to that final line where we've got ropes on the back of my hands I could strangle with. She's not referencing real ropes here. It's more the fact that her veins are aging, and that metaphor kind of shows us that the way that she's been praying, perhaps, that it's been popping out of her hand, or she's been wringing her hands with angry emotion or nerves. Spinster, I stink and remember. Whole days in bed calling no at the wall, the dress yellowing, trembling if I open the wardrobe, the slewed mirror, full length, her, myself. So we start with that one word sentence, spinster. It's interesting in terms of sentence structure and in terms of word choice here. It's placed at the start of the stanza, so it stands out, and it really shows us that society sums her up as this and no more. She's really isolated. If you're not sure what a spinster is, it's just a woman who lives on her own and never married, but although that doesn't seem too strange to us nowadays, it would have been quite a negative thing to call someone a while ago. We move on to I stink and remember. She sees her life as decay and memories, and that metaphor there shows us this. This is literally true because she's also never washed since her wedding day, but you need to think a wee bit more metaphorically about it and think about the decaying mental health, the stink that's coming from that, should we say. We've got whole days, which further emphasises our isolation, and then we go on to this idea of calling no at the wall. Really makes her sound animalistic. We've got a really clear picture of this woman doing nothing else with her day apart from screaming in the one room. She makes up a new word to represent this pain, which again really emphasises the primitive rawness of the emotions, that she couldn't think of a word that suited how bad she was feeling, so she had to make up her own. We then move on to the dress yellowing, which the word choice of yellowing is about the idea of time passing, imitates her emotional deterioration and reflects decay. That's quite an easy idea. And then we have the slewed mirror. It really means it's been smashed in anger, and clearly the world seems very distorted and twisted to her now as a result of being jilted. You have to imagine that this woman would have been excited and happy about her wedding day. This would have been the most awful thing that could have happened to her. And we should feel a little bit of sympathy for Havisham at this point in the poem. To me, Puce curses that are sounds, not words. Some nights better, the lost body over me, my fluent tongue in its mouth, in its ear, then down till I suddenly bite awake. I'm going to start with to me, which is in Jambon again, and really reinforces the continuation of her suffering. She really is looking to blame through the use of that question there as well. We move on to the word puce, which is a sort of really dark purpley colour, connotations of rage, and this idea of it being a puce curse is really showing her desire for revenge. And it really, as we move on again to the end of that line, the fact that it's coming out is not words but sounds, shows how grief-stricken she is. She can't even articulate how she's feeling. We move on to throughout that stanza where the fiancé, the lost body, its mouth, its ear, all these words are used to sort of dehumanise him. She's not using any pronouns, she's not saying him, he. And that really makes it easier to hate him, because if she takes away his sort of human, or humanity should I say, then she's able to hate him with a lot more ease. It's quite sad. We go down to, we look at my fluent tongue, and the idea here is that she used to seduce her lover with words, so she used to talk to him. A little bit of the Lady Macbeth in there I suppose as well you could think about. And it really contrasts with that first line in this stanza, that the idea she couldn't articulate, but you were clearly able to hear that she was able to do that a long time ago. It really shows that the strength of her hatred continues to permeate and sour all of our most pleasant memories. We have a wee metaphor in there of I suddenly bite awake. It's clearly that she's still in a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. We then have love's hate behind a white veil. A red balloon bursting in my face. Bang, I stabbed at a wedding cake. Give me a male corpse for a long, slow honeymoon. Don't think it's only the heart that breaks. So quite a strong ending there. We have that oxymoron between love and hate, and it really again is letting us know about Havisham's really unstable mind. Remember, a dramatic monologue is about getting to know a character, and one of the main character traits we have for Havisham is that she is unstable. We have this idea of a white veil, which has connotations of virginity, your wedding day. Havisham clearly feels she's innocent, she's the one that's been wronged, and she wants us to know that in her speech here. We have a red balloon bursting, and the alliteration of B comes back in there. It's bang, it's stabbing, it's all violent, very angry. She really has a desire for revenge here, and the bursting is sort of mirroring the shattering of her dreams. All that woman would have wanted, Julie, would have been to be a wife and get married, and it didn't really work out for her. We then move on to this quite menacing line, give me a male corpse for a long slow honeymoon, and there are loads of different interpretations of this. We're just going to chat about this in terms of the association of honeymoon with love and joy. She's making that really menacing, talking about his corpse and talking about that death. There's obviously quite sexual undertones to that if you want to read into it that way as well. We move on to this final statement, and we've got the fracturing of that BBB at the start of breaks, and it really implies how fractured her mind and spirit are, and how broken she is. She's a character that we, as I've said earlier, we do feel some sympathy, but she's very, very difficult to feel full sympathy for, because we think that she seems very bitter and twisted now, and that's kind of what's happened to her as a result of this negativity. Thanks for listening.